What happens when the people we trust most to protect our country become the villains of their own twisted stories? In today's episode of The Real Crime Diary, Daily Dose of Crime, we unravel one of the most shocking betrayals in recent history. A former CIA officer, Brian Jeffrey Raymond, who used his position of power not to serve but to exploit. Over the course of 14 years, he drugged, assaulted, and filmed more than 24 women, leaving behind a trail of victims across the globe. How could someone entrusted with national security carry out such horrific crimes for so long without being stopped? Stay with me as we dive into this chilling case. Brian Jeffrey Raymond, a former CIA officer, lived a double life. On the surface, he appeared to be the perfect gentleman, a seasoned government employee, well-spoken, and trusted by his colleagues. But beneath that facade lurked a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. It all started to unravel in May of 2020, when a naked woman was spotted screaming for help from the balcony of Raymond's Mexico City apartment. This was no ordinary domestic dispute. This was the beginning of a criminal investigation that would expose years of abuse, manipulation, and horrifying assaults. Raymond's story begins long before that fateful night. For 14 years, he carried out his despicable crimes in multiple countries, all while holding positions of trust within the U.S. government. Prosecutors detailed a harrowing timeline of abuse, during which Raymond drugged and sexually assaulted at least 24 women. Many of these victims were unaware of what had happened to them until investigators showed them photos and videos Raymond had secretly taken while they were unconscious. For 14 years, Brian Jeffrey Raymond operated in the shadows, using his position as a CIA officer to commit heinous crimes against unsuspecting women. The timeline of his criminal activities is as extensive as it is disturbing. From 2006 to 2020, Raymond systematically drugged, assaulted, and filmed at least 24 known victims across multiple countries. The nature of his crimes was particularly chilling. Raymond would drug his victims, rendering them unconscious, and then sexually assault them while they were completely helpless. He didn't stop there. He meticulously documented his crimes, taking hundreds of photos and videos of the unconscious women. What makes this case even more horrifying is that many of Raymond's victims had no idea what had happened to them until investigators uncovered the evidence. Imagine the shock and trauma of learning, sometimes years later, that you had been violated in such a way. The sheer number of victims and the duration of Raymond's criminal spree raise serious questions about how he managed to evade detection for so long. It's a stark reminder of how predators can exploit positions of trust to carry out their crimes, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. But how did Raymond manage to evade justice for so long? The answer lies in his methodical approach. He targeted women he met through dating apps, often luring them into a false sense of security with his charm and status as a government employee. Once in his apartment, he would offer them drinks, spiking them with powerful sedatives that would render his victims unconscious within minutes. With his victims incapacitated, Raymond would carry out his heinous acts, meticulously documenting every moment. He took hundreds of photos and videos, manipulating the women's bodies as if they were lifeless dolls. The sheer volume of evidence was staggering. Authorities found 487 videos and images of unconscious women on his devices. Raymond's crimes weren't limited to a single location. He took advantage of his international postings, committing assaults in Mexico City, Peru, and even back in the United States. His position within the CIA provided him with the perfect cover, allowing him to move freely between countries without raising suspicion. Perhaps most chilling was Raymond's attention to detail in covering his tracks. He would delete messages and contact information from his victims' phones while they were unconscious, making it nearly impossible for them to piece together what had happened when they woke up disoriented and with no memory of the night before. The FBI's investigation into Raymond's crimes revealed a shocking international scope. His predatory behavior wasn't confined to just one location. It spanned multiple countries, leaving a trail of victims across borders. The evidence showed that Raymond had committed his heinous acts not only in Mexico City, where he was initially caught, but also in Peru and various locations within the United States. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a pattern of abuse that potentially extended to other countries where Raymond had been stationed during his CIA career. This international dimension complicated the investigation, requiring cooperation between law enforcement agencies from different nations. The FBI's task was monumental. They had to piece together Raymond's movements, identify potential victims in multiple jurisdictions, and gather evidence that would stand up in court. This involved meticulous analysis of travel records, digital forensics, and interviews with witnesses from various countries. The scale of the investigation underscored the grave nature of Raymond's crimes and the far-reaching impact of his actions on women around the world. As the investigation unfolded, the true extent of Raymond's crimes came to light. Authorities discovered a staggering 487 videos and images of unconscious women on his devices. These weren't just random photos, they were meticulously documented evidence of his heinous acts. Each image and video told a story of violation and abuse. But Raymond wasn't going down without a fight. In a desperate attempt to cover his tracks, he tried to delete much of this damning evidence. However, thanks to the tireless work of digital forensics experts, the deleted files were recovered, revealing the full scope of his crimes. Faced with the overwhelming evidence against him, Raymond had no choice but to plead guilty. The charges were severe: sexual abuse, coercion, and transporting obscene material. In September 2024, justice was finally served. Raymond was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Yet for many, including his victims and their families, this sentence feels inadequate given the magnitude and duration of his crimes. The debate continues. Is 30 years enough for a lifetime of trauma inflicted on so many women? The case of Brian Jeffrey Raymond serves as a chilling reminder of how power and trust can be grotesquely abused. This isn't just about one man's crimes. It's a stark illustration of the vulnerabilities in our systems of authority. Raymond's position within the CIA allowed him to operate unchecked for over a decade, leaving a trail of traumatized victims across multiple countries. The impact on these women is immeasurable. Many were unaware of their victimization until confronted with evidence, a revelation that undoubtedly shattered their sense of safety and autonomy. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the safeguards in place within our most trusted institutions. Moreover, it highlights the dark side of our digital age. Raymond's use of dating apps to target victims and his meticulous documentation of crimes through photos and videos underscore how technology can be weaponized by predators. It's a sobering reminder of the need for vigilance in both our online and offline interactions. Ultimately, this case challenges us to reevaluate our assumptions about those in positions of power and to strengthen the systems meant to protect us from such betrayals. As we conclude today's episode, let's reflect on the chilling case of Brian Jeffrey Raymond, a former CIA officer who betrayed his oath, exploiting his position to commit heinous crimes against dozens of women over 14 years. His eventual 30-year sentence serves as a stark reminder that justice, though delayed, can prevail. But this case leaves us with haunting questions. How many more predators lurk in positions of power? What can we do to prevent such abuses of trust? And how do we support the brave survivors who come forward? Stay vigilant, listeners. And join us next time as we unravel a tale of international espionage that shook the foundations of global diplomacy. You won't want to miss it.